What's up, my ninjas, and shout out to all the ninjas throughout the entire Omniverse. It's the man OMNI ETC, Omni, etc. Back at it again with another video. Introducing you to one of my personal favorite builds. There are many like it, but this one is mine. My Saryn Prime build, Winter's Bloom Saryn. Without further ado, let's get to the build. So here we have Saryn Prime, the Spore Queen. Let's dive right in, starting with her abilities. So her passive, status effects inflicted upon enemies last 25% longer. It's very powerful, especially with the state of status effects in the game as is. That goes for all of her status effects as long as you're on this Warframe. So not just the abilities, but the status duration of status effects from weapon sources as well. Her first ability, her one, is spores. It's kind of the crux of her whole kit. So she puts out spores onto a single target enemy, and as long as that enemy is alive, that spore will be on them. So they're essentially marked for death. By destroying the spores or killing the host, the spores then spread amongst any enemies around it in a range of 87 meters. So it's pretty far, pretty wide-reaching effect. And that spore is a dot, so it slowly drains the health of the enemy that it's on, and it is corrosive dot, so it does corrosive damage. So it also comes with a tad bit of armor stripping. The two that I have on it is elemental ward. I like to switch between toxin and cold, but we're going to talk about cold today. Like to use the frost armor to get an additional element, the cold element, for the reflective status effect and damage. Slows down, so it comes with a bit of CC. Any unit that is attacking the Warframe with elemental ward cold on it will be slowed down, as well as have a high chance of receiving cold status, which that cold status will also be the duration of the cold status lingers for a bit longer, allowing it to, since we're on Saryn, allowing it to become frozen at some point. Toxic Lash. Okay, Toxic Lash is the toxin augment. It gives a percentage extra damage of toxin damage, and anything that hits with toxin damage, whether that is melee or a ranged weapon, will burst the spores on the unit that we were talking about earlier. So it will burst the spores from Saryn's one and cause the AoE and cause the spores to populate all the enemies. Another thing about the spores is it grows in damage the longer that it's on, and that growth becomes multiplicative when we're talking about multiple enemies that have it. Also, the damage goes down if no enemies have it. It doesn't go away. The damage from it doesn't go away. It scales down until it becomes nothing. So it doesn't, the damage is stored up and it ramps up as long as there's a host, an enemy host alive, but then it dwindles, it wanes on a time scale until Saryn can find more hosts for the spores, or until it goes away completely. Very important to note for miasma, which is her 4. Her 4th ability does damage based on who is and is not marked with the spores at the time. So it'll do its own regular base damage, right, in a radius, but if the foes are afflicted with spores, it does even more damage, and this is viral damage, which in and of itself increases damage to health. So it multiplies the damage to health. It makes it more susceptible to damage to health, which spores does damage to health, and viral damage does damage exclusively to health. So she's great at bypassing shields and going straight to the source. Bypassing shields, defenses, stripping armor, bypassing armor, and just draining health. Makes her very powerful, especially when we get into high tier Steel Path, Corrupted, Corpus missions and things of the like. She's just draining health, sapping health. So that's the base of her build, the abilities. Let's talk about the augments real quick and why I have certain augments on here. So casters, I like to have duration for casters. There's no secret. So I have 3 duration Crimson Shards, but I also have 2 Tile Forged Emerald Shards, and those are strictly for health. I want the health. I focused on health regen. I know there's other things I could have done with it to deal out more damage. Trust me, she does enough. Believe me, she does enough. I wanted to get that health back for each time she inflicts toxic status on the enemy, and she has a number of ways of doing that, as you saw with the abilities, but also a couple of more ways. So let's get into the linchpin. Of course, I'm talking about the mods. All right, so rejuvenation for some health, and also because, I mean, that's what it is. There's a number of other auras I could have put on there, but the one that made the most sense for this build was rejuvenation. When we're talking about the what is it, Varzin? What's it? Yeah, the Vezarin thing. So I could forma that out, but I really haven't had to forma anything on Saryn. I could. I'm sure there's things that I could do to overload her, but this works for me. So yeah, pretty standard setup for caster type Warframes. We have Prime Flow, Intensify, Nexus Energy Nexus, excuse me, just so that she always has a way to get energy back, regardless of whether she's on Zurich or not. She always has a way to get some energy back. Augur Secrets, Vitality, Adaptation. I like it on caster builds, especially caster builds that have some inherent armor, but I don't want to lean into their defense too much. Adaptation is great to throw on a build just so that you can take some hits, and then eventually the hits become useless to you, useless against you. Blind Rage, which is an ability efficient. The negative ability efficiency is actually great for Moat Reconstruct. As you can see, I have that over here. Of course, I have Stretch, but also let's talk about Moat Reconstruct real quick. It's great to have Blind Rage because of ability efficiency takes the amount. Of course, it increases your ability strength, but then it turns around and takes your efficiency down, which takes the cost of your energy up. And Moat Reconstruct grants health based on each energy point spent. So if you have Blind Rage, throwing on Moat Reconstruct can really, one skill, one buff can increase your health by so much. Like it sometimes refreshing a buff or just throwing out a 4 will you could be next to death and it will just completely heal you back. It's great. It's great. And you will be trying to recast spores a lot. You'll be rebuffing Toxic Lash and Energy Ward a lot. Not Energy Ward, Elemental Ward on this build a lot. So Mold Reconstruct just makes all the sense in the world. As well as, you know, spamming 4 amongst a crowd of spored up enemies. So Mold Reconstruct just makes all the sense in the world for survivability. Now, I had this on here, but I'm actually going to swap this out for what I think is far more effective. Mold Augmented. And I didn't want to actually do this until I got Mold Augmented it at 6, but not at 6, but at 5th rank, because at 5th rank it's an additional 60. The benefit is, when it's all said and done, an additional 60 ability strength. So it just means as the fight persists, Saryn becomes stronger and stronger and stronger over time. It just means as the fight persists, Saryn becomes stronger and stronger and stronger over time, which is in theme with what her whole kit is about. All right, Proboscis. Now, this is a great weapon to have. Absolutely a great weapon to have. This is the build that I have on. Actually, it's missing something. 1 second. I apologize. Yeah, I want continuous misery on here. So, interesting. All right, so this is the build that I have on the Proboscis Cerenos. The Proboscis Cerenos is a great Cerenos. It is the ultimate form of the Cerenos. So it is a 3-tier. It's a 3rd tier upgrade. It's a 3rd tier upgrade. I almost said evolution, but it's a 3rd tier evolution from the original Cerenos. So in order to get the Proboscis Cerenos, as you see it here, you must, let me type in Cerenos. I say Cerenos, but it's Cerenos. So you must first acquire the Cerenos, then you upgrade it to the Mutalisk Cerenos, and then finally it gets upgraded to the Proboscis Cerenos. And the Proboscis is its ultimate form. Not to say that the regular Cerenos or Cerenos Prime and Mutalisk Cerenos aren't that great, but the Proboscis Cerenos just changes how the bow works. So what it does, it fires arrows. Let me show you this arrow. It's a funky arrow. So it fires arrows that are tipped with biological ordnance. And what happens is when it goes into the wall or it hits a surface, tendrils from the impact point jut out, shoot out, grab all the enemies and pull them towards the impact point. After a 1.7 second delay, there's a viral explosion at that impact point. Proboscis Cerenos does toxin damage and viral damage. As you can see, originally it does toxin damage, but also it does toxin and viral damage when we talk about the radial attack, that explosion after the 1.7 second delay. For radial attack weapons, I always find it beneficial to go multi-shot, just so that there are more. Well, okay, so with that said, so I have it built Serration, Galvanized, Aptitude, Heavy Caliber, Malignant Force. It's just to buff up the toxin damage, more status chance. It's pretty high in status chance, as you can see. Split chamber, more multi-shot, continuous misery for the status duration, infected clip, more toxin damage. And I'm sure I can like extend, do the ammo drum or ammo mutation if I go ahead forma this one more time for the heavy caliber. Accuracy is not really a big thing because when you're dealing with multi-shot and you're dealing with explosions and especially biological ordnance that reaches out and grabs things, kind of want that to be spread out just a little bit on Saryn. So medium accuracy is kind of the sweet spot, so that the arrows, as you saw, the arrows were diverting, but the arrows can deviate even more, allowing for a greater field of grab and bringing those enemies, a great amount of enemies in a wide range closer together, so that Saryn's abilities can actually, especially her spore in particular, can actually transfer from the infected to the newly infected enemies. So that's the thought process behind it. And then I have primary frostbite, mainly because I don't have primary blight, and I'm working on getting primary blight, but I have maxed out primary frostbite, and that will be triggered off of the cold status effects from elemental ward. When I have elemental ward active and I'm wielding the proposis, primary frostbite will trigger on cold status effect. The status effect, this is very important to note. When you have status effect, the on status effect does not have to come from the weapon itself. It only has to occur somewhere within the build in order for the effect to be triggered on the weapon. But that doesn't, the on cold status effect doesn't have to come from the weapon in and of itself. So elemental ward gets triggered, a bunch of mobs are shooting me, I get max frostbite, and that is an additional, I want to say, let me run the math real quick. That is an additional, I want to say 90. Yep, did that off the top of my head. Just had to make sure with the calculator. All right, so yeah, that's an additional 90 multi-shot. So we're going to have up to 4 arrows of leeching, and they're going to go across a wide area just to bring that in. Bring all of that in. And continuous misery, going additional 100 status duration on top of her 25 status duration for the toxin damage as gets done for 80 enemies that are lingering, that aren't initially destroyed from the radial attack, the explosion, the viral explosion. If there are any enemies lingering, they'll still be under toxin status as well as viral status effects. So they're still they're doomed. They're out of here, but still taking advantage of keeping that toxin on so that I can continuously leech the health from those enemies. Grimoire, I talk about the good book extensively. Y'all know what I have on this book by now. If you don't, I have a short that's doing really well, going into detail about the Grimoire secondary fortifier. And then I have Harmony. And the reason why I have Harmony, there's several reasons I'm using Harmony. So I have melee afflictions on Harmony, just so that, just to fling enemies around when I do slam attacks and the like. It will fling enemies around and give them additional 6 stacks to whatever status is already on them, whether that be the toxin, whether that be the corrosive, whether that be the viral, just to do more damage, more dots, more debuffing. But also, harmonic resonance is its unique trait. So heavy attacks condense all status effects that deal damage over time into a single instance. Heavy attack kills activate harmonic resonance, a buff that increases status duration by 30% for all allies. So this is further increasing status duration, and when I perform a heavy attack on a extremely long duration viral procced up enemy, I can do one heavy attack and just take them off the chessboard, because all of that damage that would have happened over time is now all in their face all at once. This is great for slam attacks. I can do this with slam attacks. I can do and get a bunch of enemies at once that have the toxin damage. So I can bullet jump in a crowd of enemy units. I can bullet jump to the sky, double jump to the sky, look down at the ground, launch an arrow, infect all of those units with toxin damage. They're getting drawn to a focal point. That focal point after 1.7 seconds explodes, and then I bring the hammer down with harmonic resonance, doing a slam attack that counts as a heavy attack, and in an AoE fashion, all of them are getting a singular instance of that viral proc. All of that damage that would have been done over time is now condensed to a single moment, and they just die. This is what it really comes down to. Quick thinking. Yeah, here's the build for Harmony. Quick thinking. Galvanize Elementalist, increase status damage, status chance. Prime Pressure Point, Weeping Wounds. Prime Fever Strike, Reach, Virulent Surge, Drifting Contact, more combo duration, status chance. And then we have Master's Edge, Tennokai, because I want to do this, especially with 60% additional damage, and I want to do this for free without wasting a single combo point. So whenever I get the Master's Edge, I've procced up all the enemies around me with viral and toxin damage. They have melee affliction, so if I've been meleeing a few of them, they're floating in the air. They have additional stacks of all of these procs. Master Tennokai goes off, I bullet jump to the sky, and I bring the hammer down. And the bodies hit the floor. So she has a lot of control over the damage that she's able to do. So yes, she's going to proc enemies over time, but she's also going to, and this should be Narman, by the way. Let's do Narman. She's going to proc enemies and dot them up, debuff them, yes, but also she has the option with Harmony to do a lot of burst damage as well. So this is my Saryn build, Winter's Bloom. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Let me know if y'all dislike it. Let me know how I can improve this, if there's anything that you know out there, because Warframe is a vast and expanding game, ever expanding game, with new weapons being brought in, new ways to do things, and old weapons being made more relevant just off of the new things that are being brought into the game with each update. So let me know what y'all think. Let me know if you're going to use it. Peace, love, health, wealth to you all. Till next time.
It's the big we choose. Let us sin, we're the guardians, baby, let the stakes rise.